It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for tuning into West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. This is Newslink. Here are the top stories. Germany finalizes the plan to withdraw over 600 troops from the UN mission in Mali, MINUSMA. Swiss prosecutors charge former Gambian Minister Sonko for committing crimes against humanity under President Jammeh's era. Benin Republic emerges as the largest producer of cotton in Africa. And Ghana's President Akufo-Addo launches a project to produce 600 million vaccines annually through DEK's Vaccines Limited.
The vaccine nationalism that was played out by the developed world with the rollout of COVID-19 vaccine meant that we had to take urgent, critical steps towards making sure that never again would we be victims.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is James Adjapong with Newslink.
Glad to have you join us this afternoon. Let's begin in Mali, where Germany is pulling out its troops from the United Nations peacekeeping mission MINUSMA following disagreement with authorities in Bamako. The withdrawal has been a major discussion between the two parties since October 2022, but was only formalized by the German Minister of Defense last week. As Tofik Abdul Nasir reports, Germany temporarily suspended its operations in Mali last August due to restrictions imposed by the authorities on the overflight of airspace by reconnaissance drones.
Among all the European countries contributing to the peacekeeping mission in Mali, Germany has the largest contingent with at least 655 blue helmets. The contingent is made up of 613 men and 52 women and has a reconnaissance unit comprising the Heron 1 drone, a helicopter squadron, individual deployment to the mission headquarters in Bamako, and the airlift based in Niamey, the Nigerian capital. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius regretted that the deployment of its forces ended in such a manner, even if for him it was not a failure. Germany is, however, not alone in the list of countries ready to pull out their troops from the UN mission in Mali. Jordan, Sweden, the United Kingdom, and Northern Ireland have announced their withdrawal, which comes earlier than expected. The disagreement between Germany and Mali, according to sources, followed Bamako's collaboration with Russia over the deployment of private mercenaries, the Wagner Group. The junta, however, insists that the private mercenaries are instructors deployed within the framework of bilateral relations. The German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius reassured of his government's continuous bilateral cooperation even after the troops' withdrawal from MINUSMA.
Tofik Abdul Nasir filed that report. Meanwhile, the Malian government has adopted a draft law that would allow the creation of a specialized prosecutor's office in the fight against terrorism and transnational crime. Until now, this matter was attached to a court of common law in Bamako, the capital. This court will have the human and material resources to accomplish its mission. Mali is strengthening and adapting its judicial system to the threat it faces, especially since the country has embarked on a comprehensive reform called the Justice Sector Programming Law for the period 2020 to 2024. Soumaïla La is a Malian security analyst.
This pool will only deal with issues related to this field, unlike before, when the Court of the Commune 6 had these proceedings and files under its ordinary prerogatives. And next to it, there were extraordinary prerogatives that affected terrorism and cross-border crime. With this specialized judicial pool, magistrates trained and specialized in these matters will be in charge of these files. It is also auxiliaries of the judiciary specialized in these questions that will be at the level of the brigade, and it's only specialized investigating judges who will have knowledge of these files and who will carry out investigations and make decisions. So, in terms of speed, it will be a big advance, especially since what is reproached to the Malian justice is its slowness, lack of knowledge of the cases, and often the lack of means. With this reform, all these issues will be partially solved.
Soumaïla La is a Malian security analyst. Away from Mali, political parties in Burkina Faso Tuesday stated their support for the transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, in the fight against terrorism. The coalition of 4 political parties was hosted by Captain Traoré at the presidential palace in the nation's capital, Ouagadougou. The parties, according to the presidency, also participated in the design of the country's transition charter. Abdullahi Hassan has more in this report.
Confirming the meeting with the 4 political groups, the president of the transition, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, via Twitter wrote that he granted audience to the parties that participated in the national meetings. He went on to say that their discussions centered on national interest. Among the parties present at this meeting are the former alliance of majority political parties, the former leader of the political opposition, Eddie Komboigo, and the non-affiliated former opposition. Komboigo underlined that the wish of the political parties remains the recovery of the whole territory, the resettlement of the populations in their localities, and a supply of necessities in the hard-to-reach areas. The political parties, besides taking part in the design of the transition charter, said they are encouraging the head of state in his quest to end terrorism and restore calm across Burkina Faso. Following the September 30, 2022 coup, several measures, including suspension of activities of political parties and CSOs, were taken by the new authorities. Burkina Faso announced a 24-month transition timetable afterwards and then set up a technical committee made up of government actors, representatives of the Independent National Electoral Commission (CENI), and representatives of political party components. But implementing the priority actions of this transition timetable, more than $4.6 billion is required.
Abdullahi Hassan filed that report.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
If you are just tuning in, this is Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. We are streaming all around the world on WADR.org. In Nigeria, the Kaduna State government has announced the escape of at least 8 secondary school students from their abductors. The state's Internal Security Commissioner, Samuel Aruwan, disclosed that villagers found the girls, who then proceeded to alert the security forces. Aruwan, the Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, said the students walked for days after escaping from the forest between Kaduna and neighboring Niger State, where they held their captors. The girls were abducted alongside an unknown number of others by gunmen believed to be bandits 2 weeks ago on their way back from school on April 4th. They have been taken to a military facility in the state to receive medical attention. Villagers, students, and commuters remain victims of the armed gangs operating in Nigeria's northwest that carry out deadly attacks and abduct people for ransom. In other news, Swiss prosecutors have charged Usman Sonko, former Interior Minister of the Gambia, with crimes against humanity. Sonko, who served as the Interior Minister under former President Yahya Jammeh, was charged for his alleged role in crimes against humanity during this period. For more details, let's join our Banjul correspondent Sankole Janko.
A statement issued by the Swiss prosecutors on Tuesday accused Gambia's former Interior Minister Usman Sonko of having supported, participated in, and failed to prevent systematic and generalized attacks as part of a repressive campaign by security forces against Jammeh's opponents. According to the statement, Switzerland's Attorney General had filed an indictment against Sonko for crimes against humanity. The former minister, who applied for asylum in 2016, was arrested by Swiss police in 2017 after Trial International filed a complaint against the former military man. The case was filed under the principle of universal jurisdiction that allows the prosecution of the most serious crimes, irrespective of where they were committed. The indictment was filed on Monday in Switzerland's Federal Criminal Court in Bellinzona and covers alleged crimes between 2000 and 2006, according to the Office of the Attorney General of Switzerland. Philip Grant, Executive Director of Trial International, expressed satisfaction that the trial is progressing, expressing hope that Yahya Jammeh will be extradited from Equatorial Guinea. For his part, Serif Mohamed Kijara, chairman of the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations, said the indictment set the precedent for the Gambian government to take responsibility to bring the Gambian leader and his accomplices to face justice. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Zankula Janka reporting from Banjul.
The government of Liberia, through the Ministry of Youth and Sports, has reactivated the recleaning of beaches and waterways project geared towards creating a safe and healthy environment for citizens, specifically slum dwellers. The project was initiated by former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in 2011 to restore dignity to Liberia's beaches. WADR's Darlington Pogba in Monrovia reports.
Speaking Tuesday, Youth and Sports Minister Zuga Wilson said the government has projected more than $2.5 million United States dollars to reactivate the program. The project, which will officially commence in May 2023, targets about 3,848 beneficiaries from 6 of Liberia's 15 counties.
On May 1st, we will have 3,848 beneficiaries starting work in Greater Monrovia in 5 counties. This is interesting. For the first time, we are extending the coastal sanitation program, KTSI, to 5 counties. We're running a pilot in those counties. Previously, this program has been a Monrovia-based program, but we believe, and the president also believes, that Monrovia is not Liberia. So we are a lieutenant. We've got to make sure that a government-run program. Monrovia is not the only place that has coastal land.
The project was suspended in March 2020 following allegations of widespread corruption on the part of those who were managing the program. The minister alleged that the payroll of the project was bloated with ghost names, resulting in waste, ghost, and abuse. However, when contacted via mobile phone, the former coordinator of the project, George Young, denied the allegations of corruption, accusing the minister of refusing to pay all of those who were recruited for the project. He claimed that the government suspended the project to recruit its supporters on the project, threatening to stage a protest if the government refused to pay arrears owed them. For Newslink on WADR, I am Darlington Pogba, reporting from Monrovia.
Benin Republic emerges as Africa's #1 cotton producer after Mali. The leading country in 2022 dropped 3 places. The coastal state's position was announced at the last meeting of the Regional Program for Integrated Cotton Production in Africa, PRPICA, held in Abidjan. Despite being the first, however, Benin's harvest is below the desired outcome like other countries. Martisi completes the story.
At the regional meeting, stakeholders revealed that Mali produced only 390,000 tons of cotton this year, half the amount of last year. This drop relegates the country to 3rd place among the continent's white gold producers. Benin now occupies the 1st position with 587,000 tons harvested this year, followed by Burkina Faso. These figures are yet to be officially declared, as ginning is still going on in some countries. Several factors have contributed to the significant drop in the harvest of cotton in West Africa. For instance, production was affected by the attack of jassids, insect pests, that resist existing treatments, coupled with the lack of fertilizer in several cotton basins due to soaring prices on the international market. In Sahelian states like Burkina Faso and Mali, insecurity led to a drastic decline in production. Experts in the sector say, thanks to authorities, Benin escaped the double curse of fertilizer and waste in the 2022-2023 season more than its neighbors. They additionally said early sowing allowed the crop to resist the pests, but also mentioned an increase in the use of fertilizers supported the growth of the plants. In countries where cotton growers suffered losses, crops such as soybean are being contemplated by many to reduce their cotton area this year.
Martisi filed that report. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Germany finalizes the plan to withdraw over 600 troops from the UN mission in Mali, MINUSMA. Swiss prosecutors charge former Gambian Minister Sonko for committing crimes against humanity under President Jammeh's era. Benin Republic emerges as the largest producer of cotton in Africa, and Ghana's President Akufo-Addo launches a project to produce 600 million vaccines annually through DEK's Vaccines Limited. Still ahead, We have our newspaper review, guest interview, and some sports updates. Kindly stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
We are West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Don't forget you can always follow our discussions on Twitter and Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Let's head to Ghana, where stakeholders in the fishing industry have decried the activities of pirates on the high seas and the effect of such on their lives. Côte d'Ivoire and Benin waters are lately infiltrated by pirates, according to the fisher folks who paid a visit to President Nana Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House. They said the situation is already causing panic among the members and called on the Navy to protect fishermen. Richard Amefio is the spokesperson for the Ghana Fishing Association.
We are getting signals that the pirates are coming back. So we hope to go back and meet with the Navy to see what it is that we could do together to carry that process forward. I think this week we heard that the pirates were in La Côte d'Ivoire and they tried hijacking a ship. So it's giving us cause to worry. The other issue has to do with the fact that we used to fish in Benin a lot, but because of the pirates, we are unable to do so anymore. We may probably need to board Navy as we do, but because we can't go with Navy into some other jurisdiction, we will probably need some diplomatic intervention to allow us to board the Navy. Because around this time, most of the fish will be moving towards the east. And so we take license from Benin to be able to fish around by Benin waters so that we could be able to continue with our fishing. Because once the pirates are aware we have Navy on the vessels, they wouldn't come close. So we'll be grateful if it should be possible to deal with that matter to enable us continue with fishing in those waters.
Richard Amefio is the spokesperson for the Ghana Fishing Association. We remain in Ghana as President Akufo-Addo has initiated the commencement of construction for DEK's Vaccines Limited, a private sector-led consortium of Ghanaian pharmaceutical companies that will produce 600 million vaccines per year. The project's first phase is expected to cost around $122.6 million and will be equipped with advanced technology to manufacture vaccines for malaria, human papillomavirus, pneumonia, rotavirus, and cholera. Atewin Mbela Lawson in Accra has a report on this development.
A consortium of 3 Ghanaian pharmaceutical firms, DEC Vaccines Limited, is executing the first phase of a vaccine manufacturing plant with a capacity of 600 million units located in Media, a suburb in Accra, Ghana. The aim of the initiative is to produce vaccines for Ghana, the ECOWAS sub-region, and Africa as a whole to bolster the continent's capability to produce vaccines. President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana stated that the country's objective is to be self-sufficient in healthcare delivery, especially after the COVID-19 vaccine shortage in many African countries.
A private sector-led consortium of Ghanaian pharmaceutical companies, which will help our nation realize the dream of becoming self-sufficient in the production and manufacture of vaccines. The vaccine nationalism that was played out by the developed world with the rollout of COVID-19 vaccine meant that we had to take urgent, critical steps towards making sure that never again would we be victims or pawns of the international vaccine order.
The managing director of DEC Vaccines Limited Farm, Dr. Kofi Nsiapoku, emphasized the need for Ghana and Africa to prepare for the next pandemic and stated that partnership with government is appropriate given the technology-intensive nature of the vaccine manufacturing and its requirement for huge capital.
DK Vaccines Limited is a $122 million investment with a capacity to manufacture 600 million doses of various vaccines. Vaccines manufacturing is technology and capital intensive. The World Health Organization has declared a need for the preparedness of the next pandemic. This DEK factory is designed to have a reserve capacity for any emergency pandemic.
The European Union started the initiative with a grant of €5 million. Ishrad Razali, the EU ambassador to Ghana, explained the EU's decision to support the initiative.
As you all know, Africa imports 99% of its vaccines and 94% of its medicines, and this has to change. The European Union is associated with vaccine manufacturing, and today, with this €5 million grants between the European Investment Bank and DK Vaccines Limited.
The first phase of the manufacturing plant is expected to be completed in late 2024, with the first ever vaccine production in the country set for the first quarter of 2025. Reporting for Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Up next, we have our press stories from Banjul with WADR Sankole Janko.
Hello there. Welcome to this edition of the press review, coming to you from Banjul, the Gambia. I am Sankole Janko. Today's press review will start with the Foreign newspaper. Their lead story has to do with some financial issues and it involving a particular bank, and it reads, Vista Bank case. FI Group acting chairman breaks his silence. That's the lead story on the Foreign newspaper. And this one, it's been carried out by a majority of Gambian newspapers, and it reads, former Gambian minister charged with crimes against humanity. And that is the former Minister of Interior, Ousmane Sonko, who, according to reports coming from Switzerland, has been charged by the Swiss prosecutors for his alleged involvement in crimes against humanity. Rights Commission demand review environment impact of mining fish meal factories, with a photo of Emmanuel Daniel Jouve, the chairman of the National Human Rights Commission of the Gambia. This other one reads, over $128 million approved for Public Service Ministry. Finance Ministry reports, with the photo of Sidi Keita, who is the Finance Minister. UDP statement on environmental disaster in the West Coast region. That is another story from the Foria. We move on to the Standard newspaper, and their lead story has to do with committees issues at the National Assembly of the Gambia. Reid Brody welcomes indictment of Ousmane Sonko in Switzerland. The renowned international human rights lawyer is working with lots of human rights victims who are allegedly victimized during the Jammeh regime. And it is not surprised that he welcomes this particular development coming from Switzerland. Assembly to invite Minister Silla over 15 million COVID-19 funds to media. And finally, we move on to the Point newspaper, and their lead story has to do with the former Interior Minister. That's the lead story, and it reads, Switzerland indicts Ousmane Sonko for crimes against humanity. National Center for Arts and Culture to undertake inventory of heritage structures in Banjul, and this include the RG-22, which is stationed right at the entrance of Banjul. It was named after the coup of July 2022 when former President Yahya Jammeh overthrew the democratically elected government of Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. And the final story on the Point newspaper reads, Gambia College set for transformation into teacher training university. I'm afraid these are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies. And it's back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Sankole, for that newspaper review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The recent withdrawal of German troops from the United Nations Stabilization Mission in Mali, MINUSMA, and the implications this decision may have on security, foreign affairs, and the fight against insurgency in the region is our focus this afternoon. Germany, along with France and the UK, has decided to also withdraw from the mission due to increasing tensions with Mali after the country's military government denied flyover right. Joining us is Jibril Baba Indasi, a security expert who will be analyzing the potential impact of this decision on the protection of civilians and the battle against insurgency in Mali.
For me, it is not a surprise, and I think that many security experts on the continent of Africa and around the world, this is long expected because you know that Germany is aligning with France and Britain on any global issue, unless in some few exceptions, and you know certainly on this issue of Russia-Ukraine war. So you can see consistently that Russia is making inroad. Just recently, the Malian defense minister did pay tribute to, commented on the relationship between Mali and Russia and said it's a win-win partnership. I think I even watched an interview on one of the international channels where he spoke about the relationship of Russia and what the benefit that is accruing particularly to Mali in terms of the counter-insurgency operation in that country. You know, they have just received 2 combat jets and helicopter gunships that they are using in executing the war. You know, so I mean, for me, this is not a surprise.
So for you, you see this evolving trend as a clear break in foreign relations between EU and Mali now?
Yes, what is just playing out, my brother, is that it's what has always been playing out on the continent of Africa. Africa has always been a battleground, you know, of various tendencies, you know, of various ideologies. You recall during the Cold War era, what happened, you know, one side is pro this, the other side is pro that, and all of that. And that is what is playing. If you look at it, there's 2 global blocks now. The unipolarism of the global politics is changing now. It's no longer what has been since the 90s with the fall of the Berlin Wall and all of that.
Jibril Indasi is a security expert. Now to some sports update. Nigeria international Victor Osimhen, late equalizer, was not enough as his Napoli side exited the UEFA Champions League following a 2-1 aggregate defeat against AC Milan. Meanwhile, holders of Real Madrid cruised into the semis following a 2-0 win against much-improved Chelsea at Stamford Bridge in London on Tuesday night. Elsewhere, Ghana ended their under-16 UEFA tournament in Serbia on a high note after a 3-2 win against Switzerland on Tuesday. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM Banjul, and in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County, and in Ghana on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Inyas Bilimu has been on the console. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek for our Facebook live coverage. Do interact with us via social media platforms on Twitter and Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a repeat of our agenda program 50-50 with Atiawene Bella Lawson. I am James Adjapong. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music, get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.